Welcome to the Stokastic MLB Strategy Show. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with Adam Scherer. You can find him on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And this show is sponsored by So Rare MLB, which is a collection of digital trading cards and an NFT-based free-to-play baseball game. We'll talk about So Rare a little bit more later on. Adam, how was yesterday for you?
It was okay. Lost a little bit. Had a decent FanDuel NBA lineup that didn't quite get there, but yeah, nothing crazy. Went back to playing tournaments a little bit. Didn't 150 max, just yeah, but played tournaments, so it was fun. Nice change over cash.
Thank you to Jorge for the reminder. Yeah, please do like the video while you're coming and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification button so we can get alerts when our shows go live. Please get 30 likes. What is this about? 30 likes, chat Adam's beard will grow back. I see what it's about. Yeah, you still look pretty clean shaven there. Not really a ton of scruff to show just yet, but it'll get there, I'm sure. Yeah, for me yesterday, so I forgot about that I had entered 20 MLB lineup. I just did the 20 max is all I did. I forgot about it until after some of the games already started. So I ended up just making lineups in about 2 minutes. I was like, screw it, I'm probably not going to win here. I ended up making money despite having 100% Luis Garcia. So that was kind of fortunate. Apparently the early bats did not do much because just having the later bats worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I managed to lose money I had 25% Garcia on DraftKings and none on FanDuel and still lost.
Yeah, apparently a negative from a pitcher, not a big deal. So yeah, just play whoever you want at pitcher, apparently. All right. Well, we can jump into the slate. We've got a 12 gamer here. Nice that it's I know we talked about this yesterday. We like the day games, but games don't start until 7:05 Eastern, so we have some time to talk a little strategy here. And we will start with this Chicago at Washington game. We've got Hayden Wesneski on the mound for the Cubs, Trevor Williams for the Nationals. Adam, any interest in these pitchers?
Not really. Williams, certainly not a great pitcher. Does have really interesting splits. I know I've mentioned it, I think, every time he's pitched this year, but some of the most drastic splits since the start of last year that I can remember ever seeing. I got logged out of the site where I have those numbers, so I'm trying to get back to that. But off the top of my head, it's something like a 30% strikeout percentage against right-handed hitters with basically no power allowed for Trevor Williams since last year. To lefties, he has like a 9% strikeout percentage. 9.1% strikeout percentage to lefties since last year, 29.7% to righties, 142 expected ISO allowed to righties, 259 to lefties. So far this year, a 21% strikeout percentage to righties. So that number is down over, in a limited sample with a 204 expected ISO, still just a 10% strikeout percentage and a 359 expected ISO to lefties. Now, most of the power for the Cubs is going to come from the right side, but Ian Happ, Cody Bellinger in particular look really, really good from the left side. And then clearly you can still get to Horner, Swanson, Suzuki, Wisdom. So it would be a worse matchup for Williams if the Cubs had more good lefties, but even so, tough to want to get to him. On the other side, it's a better matchup for Wesneski against a very weak Washington team, but still on a 12-game slate, not a lot of strikeout upside for Wesneski, not a ton of strikeouts in the Nats lineup either. Reasonable implied run total below 4, but I don't think we're going to really need to get to Wesneski much. He's pulling 1% ownership, 3% chance of being a top 2 pitcher.
Okay, and then you kind of got into the bats just a little bit, but do you want to give an overview of your interest?
Yeah, I like the Cubs. Again, Happ and Bellinger in particular, but the Cubs as a stack look pretty good here, pulling 5% ownership, 6% chance of being the top stack. Washington coming in much lower, 6.5% ownership because they are really, really cheap, but only a 2% chance of being the top stack. 19% chance of being the top value stack is first on the slate. So, if you need some value to fit in whatever pitching or main stacks you want, that's fine. You have a very cheap Luis Garcia. You have a very cheap Keibert Ruiz as a solid catching option. I think those are the two that I would look to first from the Nets.
Okay. And then how would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Cubs bats 1, Nats bats 2, Wesneski 3, Williams 4.
All right, perfect. That was quick, easy. Moving on to the second game of the slate. We have, this is an interesting one, Cleveland at the New York Yankees. Tanner Bibby on the mound for the Guardians. Garrett Cole for the Yankees. Adam, are you interested in these pitchers?
Yeah, definitely interested in Garrett Cole. Should go without saying. Not a great strikeout matchup against Cleveland, but a very good strikeout pitcher in Cole. He is projected as the highest scoring pitcher on the slate, 21.4 DraftKings points, about 1.5 points ahead of Zach Gallen. So certainly happy to get there. Bibby has solid strikeout stuff. You're getting a watered down Yankees lineup as well. Sub 4 implied run total, $6,500 price tag on Bibby. I think if you need to pay down at pitching, he is a reasonable option. But we only have him getting 2% ownership, 4% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. I just don't think you're going to need to pay down all that much. You do have plenty of high-end pitching today with Cole, Gallen, Brown, Urias, Ryan. So this isn't the same as yesterday where you're just like dying to find any semblance of talent at pitcher. You have a lot more of it today.
Do we want to talk about this this Dubon take? This it's a revenge spot for Mauricio Dubon, apparently.
I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever read in this chat, and that's saying a lot. Not only are revenge games dumb in the sense that it suggests that professional athletes are not trying their hardest, except for when they play their former team. You can at least like rationalize it when you talk about like basketball, where a player can just say like, yeah, no, I'm taking over and I'm shooting today. Or even football, where you can say like a quarterback's going to just like pepper a receiver with targets because the receiver hates the other team, whatever.
Right.
In baseball, like hitting a baseball is the most difficult thing to do in sports. I guarantee you, especially somebody like Mauricio Dubon, who isn't like an established major leaguer, that dude's out there trying to hit the ball as well as he can every single day. Obviously, even established major leaguers are, but especially guys that are, like fighting for a major league job. He's not just sitting around like, oh man, I don't really care today, but man, I can't wait to play the Giants. And then also, like, no matter how hard you try, it's still really, 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 really hard. Like, one has nothing to do with the other.
I think the best thing you can say is he's maybe seen the pitchers more on the other side. So like if you want to believe in like he was on this team previously, he's in a better spot. Well, I mean, he like practiced with them.
BP.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like he's seen like where their pitches go and stuff because he practiced with them theoretically at least. I'm not a big believer in revenge narratives in baseball, but of course Dubon is going to hit a home run tonight, and we're going to see some victory laps tomorrow. Anyway, enough about the Mauricio Dubon spot. All right, so interest in Garrett Cole, probably not gonna have to go to Tanner Bibby. How about was that a correct paraphrasing of what you said?
Yeah, like if you have to pay down, Bibby's fine. But like, not only do you have good top end pitching on this slate, you have Mason Miller at 5,700, so an even cheaper price tag than Bibby. He appears to be the cheap pitcher that people are going to go to. Also, you have Bryce Miller at 4K for Seattle. I'm not going to pretend at this point that I even know who that is. I'll figure it out by the time we get to that game, but he's projected for 30% ownership at 4K. So even as far as pay down options go, it seems like Bibby isn't really grading out the best.
Okay. And then what about the bats in this game?
Not a lot of interest there. Clearly you're never too excited to go up against Garrett Cole. 3.1 implied run total for the Guardians. And on the Yankee side, you can always get to Volpe, Rizzo, Torres, but it's more difficult to like this lineup when you don't have Stanton, Donaldson, and Judge, obviously.
Yeah, of course. And then can you rank the four sides of this game?
Cole 1, either Yankees bats or Bibby 2, the other one 3, and Guardians 4.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense. Toronto at Boston. We've got Yusei Kikuchi on the mound for the Blue Jays, Tanner Houck for the Red Sox. Any interest in these pitchers?
Not really. A tough matchup for Tanner Houck. He does have decent stuff, but against Toronto on this slate, I don't think you really need to get there. For Kikuchi, we've seen this for a while now. Solid strikeout stuff, gives up a lot of power. Very boom or bust pitcher. He's somebody that on a slate like yesterday, you would almost certainly take some chances on just because of the strikeout upside. Here, he's not nearly as appealing. Pulling no ownership, 7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. You're just going to be able to find better spots on this slate.
Okay. And then I would guess you have some interest in these bats, but do you have any interest in the bats in this game?
Yeah, 9.5 run total here, 4.5 implied run total for the Sox, 5 for the Blue Jays. Certainly some upside. I don't think either pitcher is terrible, and it is only like 50 degrees in Boston, so that's working against the hitters. Also working against the Red Sox to some extent is that most of their good hitters are left-handed. Kikuchi does still give up power to lefties, though. 205 expected ISO since last year, 23.5% strikeout percentage. So you can still go to guys like Rafael Devers, Alex Verdugo. You should have Kike Hernandez in a good lineup spot. Turner and Ref Snyder should be in there. So the Red Sox look decent against Kikuchi, who does give up a lot of power. On the other side, you have a 5 implied run total for Toronto. Since last year, no power allowed to righties for Tanner Houck. Sub 100 expected ISO, 23% strikeout percentage. That's certainly concerning when you talk about a lineup that has almost nothing but right-handed power. But you have to keep in mind with Toronto, too, you're talking about very, very good right-handed hitters. It's not your average right-hander that Tanner Houck is just dominating. So you do still have a lot of upside here, even though it is a relatively difficult matchup. They are second in top stack score or top stack percentage at 8.5%. They are third in top stack score, the metric that values that weights value and top stack percentage. So they grade out well. Again, it's a spot where I'm looking at it and I don't love the matchup. I don't think this is a particularly good matchup for Toronto, but it's just a matter of how good their offense is and that they're hitting in Fenway Park.
Yeah, very, very nice place for them to be. A very nice environment at the very least. How would you rank the four sides of this game?
Toronto bats, Red Sox bats, I guess Kikuchi, and then Houck.
Adam, I saw you got like $400 back from DraftKings yesterday. How are you going to use that money?
I think I used it on tournaments yesterday.
Yeah, I only got 26. I'm very curious what the tournament was that came from, because
it seems like it's a variety. Because I saw people commenting like that they only played X sport and it was a sport that I didn't play.
Right.
So I'm guessing it had to have been like. So the initial thought was like a scoring error, but it had to have been like a user or something that they banned.
And the amount of money involved, I was like, could this be? I mean, there's been some Twitter rants about particular users recently. I'm like, could this be related to that? I don't think that's the case. I don't know. It's I'm very curious to know what happened, because yeah, a lot of people got a lot of money back yesterday. I only got $26, so that was kind of disappointing. But yeah, it seemed like people who play a variety of different sports were getting significant amounts of money back. So very curious what happened there with DraftKings. And also if it is one specific contest, I think in the past they've actually like told us what the contest is.
Right.
In this case, it was just like, hey, we owe you some money. Here's a refund. I don't know. It was
it was my guess is that they had to have just like removed somebody like retroactively from like standings.
Yeah, must be the case. Anybody in
chat?
I
think I saw somebody say like all they had played was like PGA or something, and I didn't play PGA, so it couldn't have just been one contest.
I think I know who you're talking about, but that person like. They said like I mostly just play this PGA Classic, so I was like, okay, if that's what you mostly play, I don't know. Yeah. It was
there was somebody, might not even been PGA. There was somebody like specifically said all I played was like PGA or NASCAR or some sport that I definitely did not play. Yeah,
exactly. So who knows? But kind of fun to get some money back from DraftKings. It doesn't usually happen that way. Okay. Did you already rank the Toronto Boston set game?
Yes. Toronto, Boston, Kikuchi, Houck.
Okay, perfect. Good job. Toronto, Boston, Kikuchi, Houck. Okay, got it. All right, we'll do one more game before we've got my Twins at the White Sox. Joe Ryan on the mound for the Twins. Michael Kopech for the White Sox. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Some interest in Joe Ryan. 4 implied run total for the White Sox. He is expensive on DraftKings at 10.5, so that's going to make him relatively difficult to get to. Pulling 3% ownership, 11% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, only a 1% chance of being a top 2 value. So this is purely a pay up to be contrarian spot. I don't think you're going to get much of him. It's going to be tough to get there, but he is at least a good pitcher in a decent matchup. On the other side, not a great matchup for Kopech. 5 implied run total for the Twins. Plenty of power in this lineup, and Kopech just continues to not be a particularly good pitcher. So far this year, striking out 14% of righties. He is striking out 30% of lefties in a limited sample, but he's also allowed a ridiculous 367 expected ISO, 443 expected WOBA to lefties, righties 318 expected ISO, 457 expected WOBA. If you go back to last year, again, a really high strikeout percentage to lefties at 29%, but still like 218 expected ISO. Righties striking out only 15% of the time with a 176 expected ISO. Sets up as a pretty good spot here for the Twins. Again, it's only like 50 degrees in Chicago, so you'd prefer it be a little bit warmer, but not interested in getting into Kopech, and I do like the Twins bats quite a bit.
Okay, yeah, and Andrew Martinez says winds blowing out in Chicago. Looks that way. It looks like the winds are on the side of the hitters as well. Do you have anything else you want to add about your interest in the bats here, or are you ready to rank the game?
So yeah, the wind is blowing out to right. It looks like. Yeah, I mean nothing super useful to add. Like Kepler, Polanco, Correa, Buxton. Obviously, all those guys look good. Joey Gallo just hitting the hell out of the ball this year. Saw a tweet this morning. I don't remember where it came from, but it was listing the biggest increases in barrel percentage from last year to this year. Gallo was one of the guys at the top.
I saw that.
That shouldn't be surprising by how often he's hitting home runs. So yeah, I just really like the Twins here. They're third in top stack percentage, right behind Toronto. They're getting a little bit more ownership than Toronto, but they're also less expensive. And again, I always end up just trusting the data more so than what I think necessarily. But in terms of just like saying I like this matchup for XYZ reasons, it's a lot easier for me to do that with Minnesota than it is Toronto.
Really refreshing to finally see somebody come to Minnesota and get better, like Joey Gallo. I mean, we have a long history of that being the opposite being the case.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that with Baltimore. It's like everybody's cast-offs go to Baltimore now and become good, as opposed to leaving Baltimore and becoming great.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, thank you for Yannick Cano.
I didn't even realize that that he was on the Twins.
Yeah, he was part
previously.
of the Jorge Lopez trade.
Okay. Well, have fun with that.
I don't think he's allowed a base runner yet.
Seriously? All right.
Something insane. Like, he's been unbelievable. So like, it was just another example of like the Orioles fixing guys. They got him last year, and he like briefly pitched in the majors, but was horrible and couldn't throw strikes. They bring him up this year, and he's just throwing strikes, striking out like everybody. Yeah, he's pitched 9 games, 11 innings. He has struck out 12 guys. He's allowed 0 hits.
Okay,
And
so he's a
0
relief pitcher. You said the
Oh,
name, and I
yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't immediately know. Did I mishear you or something? No, it's because
Yeah,
he's a
no.
relief pitcher, so I just don't know who he is.
Yeah,
who we're
he's a
talking about
reliever.
here.
He has quickly become their setup guy / he closes when Felix Bautista isn't pitching.
Nice.
Yeah, 11 innings pitched, no hits and no walks.
Damn. All right. Well, it's early though. I mean, it's
Oh, yeah,
very small sample size, but
Yeah.
yeah, nice start there. And then I just saw 8 games, said that he got 253 back in that from DraftKings. Not sure why either. And I'm also like wondering, like, so some people, I think a lot of people were assuming that it was one of the more recent contests. I mean, that was my assumption right away. So that's another thing. People saying like, oh, I only play PGA. Well, maybe they're talking about like within the past week or two. This could be from NFL season or something. Anyway, just speculating. None of us know anything. All right. And then how would you rank the 4 sides of the Twins White Sox game?
Twins bats 1. It's kind of tough from a salary standpoint because, like, I would say Ryan 2, but realistically, he's tough to get to. So I guess I'll say White Sox 2 simply because they're going to be easier. Like, if you're playing 150 lineups, I would assume I'm getting more White Sox than $10,500 Ryan. But if Ryan fits, I prefer Ryan to the White Sox. So I guess a little bit of nuance there. And Kopech last.
Okay. And Obi-Wan asked, Twins full stack? It sounds like it. Or do you have interest in full stack?
Full stack,
in the Twins?
1 offs, 2 offs, 3 offs. I don't care. Just get to the Twins.
Yep. Absolutely. They look good. All right. On to, well, I will first, before we get into the next game, let me just tell you briefly about our sponsor, SoRare MLB. And I will pull up my lineup once again, which we put together on the show a couple days ago. And where is this? StreamYard is not showing that. Hang on 1 second. Might be having a StreamYard issue here. So I might not actually be able. Oh, here we go. Now it just popped up. That's fun. All right. So taking a look at the lineup that we put together on the show. What happened to Spencer Strider? That was the early game, right? I didn't even notice until I looked at my silver.
What he did or didn't do.
Yeah, against the Mets. Apparently did not have a great game by Spencer Strider standards. So a little bit disappointing there. Our Coors games, the Rockies and Brewers haven't even started yet. And of course, Shane McClanahan hasn't started yet. So not really much to glean from what's happened so far with my SoRare lineup. But again, you guys, you should definitely check out SoRare. These are NFTs that you can purchase, or if they're the common cards, you can get them for free when you sign up for SoRare. They just give you cards to start that you can enter in contests and win other cards, limited cards that are actually worth some money. So definitely check it out. If you don't have a big bankroll, it's a great place to start. If you do have a big bankroll, you can get a huge edge on the field in SoRare. I find it to be a lot of fun, and I haven't put that much money in it. My advice that I've been given is just buy a few aces and then stream bats based on where they go, because aces tend to be useful like week in and week out. Like the Spencer Strider has been useful almost every week. Of course, you can't just have 2 because they need to start in the given time frame. These contests are 3 to 4 days long, so you can't always play a pitcher because sometimes they're not going to be starting, so then you can't play them. But if you just have like maybe 4 or 5 aces and then you just stream through the bats, I think that is a very cheap way to play, and also a very a good way to play. I think that long term it's going to be money-making endeavor playing this way. So highly recommend checking out SoRare. You can start, if you want, just with the free stuff. You sign up, they'll give you some common cards for free. And then if you decide that you like it, if you are enjoying the game, then you can try out these limited contests that I'm playing here, where you can win these cards in contests. You can buy them on the marketplace, and it's a really fun way to play. I just put the link into chat if you want to check out So Rare. But highly recommend it. It's 3 or 4 days at a time, so it's not daily fantasy. It's not quite season long. It's just 3 to 4 day stretches, and I find it to be a ton of fun. And of course, these cards, I bought this Spencer Strider card. I can use this for the remainder of Spencer Strider's career in these So Rare contests, and even beyond that, maybe hold on to it as a collectible. It's like a digital baseball card. So check out So Rare. Really fun way to play fantasy sports. All right, Adam, I'm going to get back to this slate. We've got your Baltimore Orioles at the Kansas City Royals. Tyler Wells on the mound for the Orioles. Ryan Yarbrough for the Royals. Are you playing either of these pitchers, Adam?
Not a ton of interest in either one. Tyler Wells has been sneaky good. He's pulling 6% ownership at 7,300, 7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. He typically is able to go deep into games. It's not a horrible matchup against KC. You've got a good pitcher's park. So far this year, a 24.5% strikeout percentage to lefties, 20% to righties. So again, not somebody you're going out of your way to get to, but he's a solid enough pitcher where if you land there, I think it's fine. I wouldn't expect to be getting too much Yarbrough here against the Orioles. We have him with a 0% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Seems not very good.
Seems low. Yeah. What about the bats?
I don't think I've ever seen a flat 0 before.
I wonder if it's an error, but everything else looks right in the tool. So I don't know. It looks like an error to me, but who knows? All right. What about the bats in this one?
Some interest in the Orioles, again, not a great hitter's park, so that's working against them, but you just have so much power in this lineup. Hayes was also on that list with Joey Gallo. I think it was like a 10.5% increase in barrel percentage over last year. He's likely to be leading off here against the lefty. You have Rutschman, Mountcastle. Mountcastle's been getting incredibly unlucky this year. That should turn around sooner than later. Santander will be hitting from the right side. Mateo continues to just be like one of the best hitters in baseball over the first month. Obviously, you're not expecting that to continue, but even if you just assume he's a league average hitter, you still have power and speed, which gives you a very, very high ceiling. So he's an appealing option. At shortstop, you have a cheap Ramon Urias who should be in the lineup today. So the Orioles look pretty good. 4.7 implied run total. They are 4th on the slate in top stack percentage at 6.5%, about a 6% projected ownership. So decent spot for them. Not really interested in getting to the Royals here. It's the same thing with Kansas City as usual. Like, I don't really love them as a stack. If you get to Witt, Pasquantino, Melendez individually, those guys are all good.
Okay.
Nick Prado has been added to the player pool on DraftKings as well. He's 2,400. As of last year, he was a top 100 prospect. Not sure off the top of my head if he's maintained that or not, but there is some talent there at 2,400.
Okay. And then how would you rank the 4 sides of this game?
Orioles bats 1, either Wells or Royals 2, 3. I think they're kind of comparable where like neither one is bad, neither one is good. You kind of just might land on them a little bit, and then Yarbrough 4.
Okay. Angels at Cardinals. We have Patrick Sandoval on the mound for the Angels, Steven Matz for the Cardinals. You playing either of these pitchers, Adam?
The price tag on Steven Matz is kind of appealing for a solid pitcher to only be $5,900. Doesn't look terrible, but also not a slate where I think you need. Like, you have a lot of cheap options you can get to. Matz is pulling about 12% ownership right now, 19% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 9% chance of being a top 2 scorer. He does have, good enough stuff. It's a dangerous matchup against the Angels. You have a lineup with, 2 of the best hitters in baseball in Trout and Ohtani. Plenty of right-handed power with Rendon, Renfroe, Drury, Ward. So not in love with getting to Matz here, but he is cheap enough. I think you could get there some. Sandoval's a pretty solid pitcher as well, but in a tough matchup against the Cardinals. $7,100 price tag. He is coming in with a 4.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. No ownership coming to him. Again, on some slates, I think you could make an easier case for getting to him just based on talent, but here he's pretty far down the list for me.
Yep. And then what about the bats?
Never mind getting to either team in tournaments just because of the power upside, but since last year, Sandoval's held right-handed hitters to a 126 expected ISO. This year so far, 142. So, while you do have Goldschmidt, Arenado, Contreras, O'Neill, Carlson, DeYoung, Edman, like all these right-handed bats, it's still not the most appealing spot against Sandoval. And then on the other side, kind of the same thing. I'm always willing to get to Trout, Ohtani, Renfroe, Drury, Ward. Zach Neto is a cheap shortstop, likely to be leading off, one of the Angels' top prospects. But Matz is a solid enough pitcher. So to me, they're both just sort of tournament stacks. 3% ownership coming into the Angels, 3% coming into the Cardinals. They are back-to-back in top stack percentage, both at about 4%. So they're just sort of middle-of-the-road teams where if you're playing a bunch of lineups, you probably get to them a little bit. If you're not, you probably don't.
Okay. And then how would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
They're like all the same to me. Matt's 1 because he's so cheap, I guess. Cardinals 2, Angels 3, Sandoval 4, but like they're all just like you could also make the case that like the Cardinals and Angels are at the top because if you play 150 lineups, you're probably getting them more than the pitching. They're all just like middle of the road plays to me.
All right, so we should quiz you on this one at the end of the show.
Yeah.
What order did you pick?
Okay.
All right. I've been finding, man, I really need like a back scratcher. Like I think there are like things you can get. I keep getting an itch like in like the one spot on my back that I really have trouble reaching. It's the worst. And my
like
wife
cramp
isn't
up
home.
when you try and do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the worst. Just need like, I don't know. Did you ever watch Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
I'm
I
just
mean, not
picturing
like religiously, so I can't guarantee I'm going to know what you're talking about.
it was early on. Andy had like an itch stick. He had a cast on his leg,
I
and he had
kind
like
of
a
remember
stick
that.
that he would,
Yeah.
gross, very gross thing. But yeah, I need like something like that for my back. All right, on to Arizona at Texas. We have Zach Gallen on the mound for the Diamondbacks, John Gray for the Rangers. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Yeah, Gallen is good. The Rangers offense also is good. No Corey Seager makes it a little bit more appealing for Gallen, but he's coming in with about 27% ownership, 19% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, is the second highest on the slate. So far this season, he has struck out 26% of righties, 31% of righties, 40% of lefties. Going back to last year, 26% of righties, 30.5% of lefties. Since last year, a 138 expected ISO to righties, 104 to lefties. This year, sub 100 expected ISO to lefties, 221 expected WOBA to lefties, 114 expected ISO to righties, 260 expected WOBA there. Very, very good pitcher. And you are getting a little bit of a discount off of Garrett Cole, who comes in $1,500 more. So definitely interested in getting to Gallen. John Gray is not a bad pitcher either, but he's somebody that looks more like a pitcher that's just going to be tough to get to on this slate. Pulling 1% ownership, 6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Diamondbacks offense is not bad. It's not a spot that I love taking pitchers against. 4.3 implied run total. So, yeah, like Gray is fine if you just happen to get him in a lineup here or there, but it's not something I'd be going on my way for. Gallen looks good.
Okay. And then what about the bats?
Some interest in the Arizona bats. Gray does have a lot lower strikeout percentage against left-handed hitters since last year. 20% strikeout percentage, 156 expected ISO over that time. So not a ton of power allowed, but he is allowing them to put the ball in play. This year on a limited sample, he is having even more issues. 11% strikeout percentage against lefties, 270 expected ISO, 432 expected WOBA. Again, I expect those numbers to improve, but doesn't mean that has to start today when you're going up against Rojas, Marte, Smith from the left side. Probably no Corbin Carroll, so that does water it down a bit. But still a decent offense. I would certainly get to them more if they had Carroll.
Okay. Yeah. And then can you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Gallen 1, D-backs 2, Gray 3, Rangers 4.
Okay. Ryan Nelson says, Neil ever tried Ron Swanson for Halloween? Since we're talking about Parks and Rec, I have not. I kind of believe in doing characters that have the same facial hair that I have, and I wouldn't want to shave down to a mustache. I don't think it would look very good on me. Adam, how do you feel about Halloween costumes in general? I remember on Twitter one time, I think it was Leslie Misek did like adults shouldn't dress up for a Halloween kind of tweet or something like that. And I very strongly disagree. I think dressing up is fun. Like people, one time a year that it's okay for adults to dress up, but also the past few years, I don't think I've really gone to Halloween parties. So I'm not going to dress up like at home. Like if I'm invited to a Halloween party where people are wearing costumes, I'll dress up in something. But how do you feel about it, Adam?
That's pretty much where I'm at. I haven't done it in years. And like in college, I always half-assed it too. I think I had the same like breathalyzer, like blow me costume that for like every year I was in college.
Nice.
But yeah, like in law school, I got there was like a big Halloween thing, and I got. Have you seen The League?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I got like a full size McGiblets costume, and was gonna wear that. But then I realized that going to the bathroom would be a pain in the ass, and also that it was like furry, and it was just gonna like leave purple fuzz everywhere. So I ended up not wearing that. But like, if I'm going to something like with friends and I need to get into it, like I will. But typically on my own, like I just don't bother with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Larry C says used to be an excuse for women to dress in a certain way. Yeah, that's half of why I love it. It's so fun going to Halloween parties.
It's the best night of college all year.
Yeah, exactly. All right. San Francisco, you already ranked the 4 sides. Yeah, you did. Okay. San Francisco at Houston. We've got Anthony DeSclafani on the mound for the Giants, Hunter Brown for the Astros. Adam, any interest in these pitchers?
Yeah, interest in Brown here. Just a good young pitcher for Houston. 3.4 implied run total for the Giants is pretty low. Brown is coming in third in top 2 pitcher percentage at 17.5%, 18% ownership. So kind of an interesting spot compared to Zach Gallen, who, I do like Zach Gallen, but Brown is $400 less. Not much less likely to be a top 2 pitcher, and getting like 2/3 the ownership of Gallen makes him look kind of interesting in tournaments. But happy to get to him. Not particularly interested in getting to DeSclafani here against Houston. He's pulling no ownership, 7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher.
Okay. And then how about the bats?
Not much interest. I think if you're going to one side, you're probably going to Houston just based on talent. DeSclafani is typically better against right-handed hitters than he is against lefties, but does still give up some power. 191 expected ISO to righties since last year. That is a pretty limited sample, though. If you go back to the start of the 2021 season for a larger sample, 154 expected ISO to righties, 193 to lefties. Individually, I like Alvarez, I like Kyle Tucker, but the rest of this lineup is certainly like stackable because they're a bunch of good high upside hitters. But when you, from like a matchup standpoint, what does DeSclafani do poorly? It's Alvarez and Tucker that really stand out.
Okay. How would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Hunter Brown 1, Astros 2. I guess Giants bats 3, DeSclafani 4.
Paul Me says Brown 0 home runs allowed so far this year. How many games have pitchers pitched at this point? Like I don't even know. Yeah, baseball season goes so slow and also so fast. Like you get through so many games so quickly, and it's like holy shit, they're already like 50 games into the season. At some point, it's
I kind of like
mind.
had that realization the other day because like typically I pull stats from like the start of last year, but at some point like you do want to start at least being aware of what pitchers have done this year, and it kind of hit the other day. I was like, okay, these guys are at like 5 starts now. I should probably at least like look at what they're doing.
Right,
Not
it's
that you're
starting
like,
to matter.
Yeah, like you're not basing it off of that, but at least like you can start to notice if there's some red flags or some guys that are really struggling, whereas like 1, 2, 3 starts into the season, it's completely useless.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We're further into the season than I realized. It still feels like we're fresh into baseball season, but it goes so fast.
5 starts, 30 innings so far this year for Hunter Brown.
Wow, and 0 home runs. That is I mean,
Zero.
still small sample, but still impressive. All right, we have our Coors game now. Milwaukee at Colorado. Freddie Peralta on the mound for the Brewers. Ryan Feltner for the Rockies. Adam, playing any pitchers in Coors today?
I'm good. Peralta is somebody like if you're going to play a pitcher in Coors, Peralta's the type of guy that you would. He basically just throws fastballs, different variations of fastballs. And that's a pitch that, isn't going to be as affected by the altitude, but it is, he is still going to be impacted by the fact that there is a massive outfield that his outfielders have to cover. And the fact that this is a 12-game slate with plenty of good pitching. So still not planning on getting to Peralta, but he does look better than pitchers typically do in Coors. Feltner, I'm not going to get to. Just no real need on this slate to go to a pitcher in Coors. Not good strikeout upside, none of that. So, if you forced me to roster a pitcher in Coors, I would go Peralta.
Yep. And somebody was asking just a little bit ago, who are the top 2 projected stacks? Yeah, it's Milwaukee is number 1 by double the next on the slate. So let's talk about these bats a little bit. What's your level of interest in both sides of this game?
Very interested in Milwaukee. Like you said, double the top stack percentage. They are the highest on stack, basically by double as well. The problem just is going to come down to what can you do ownership wise. It's typically in spots like this, when I'm multi-entering, I end up still getting a lot of Milwaukee bats, but maybe not to the same level that the field is, and maybe more so as like 3-man, mini stacks, 2-mans. We've had this conversation before where I know there's some people that don't like the idea of taking mini stacks from a chalk team. I have no issue with it whatsoever. And with Milwaukee, it just like from a full stack standpoint, it just comes down to like, can you find low owned plays elsewhere? Because every hitter in this lineup is projected for at least 10% ownership on DraftKings. You have 4 hitters or 5 hitters projected 20% or higher. So you're talking about half your lineup, being pretty popular. And the other thing to keep in mind is, they're the top stack by a by more than 2x the next team. They're still over 80% to not be the top stack.
Right. It's still not going to hit. I mean, I guess they could still hit, but not be the top stack way more often than they actually do hit. So yeah, it's always a tough spot here. How would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Brewers 1, Rockies 2, Peralta 3, Feltner 4. The Rockies are coming in 6th in top stack percentage at 5%, 2% aggregate ownership. they are more expensive than Milwaukee. So that's the other thing with Milwaukee is like we're back to this situation where not only do they have a 6+ implied run total and they're the most likely top stack, they're also 11. They have an 11% chance to be in the top value stack. You have Christian Yelich on DraftKings over 5K, and Willie Adames at 5,900. No other hitter is above 5K. Jesse Winker is 3,600, probably hitting second. Tellez is sub 5K. You have a $4,600 William Contreras. The bottom of the order just gets flat out cheap. Bryce Terang, 2,700 with stolen base upside and speed guys in cores. It's always kind of nice because it's one of the nice things about cores from an offensive standpoint is the outfields are huge. So not only do balls that would typically be caught fall in for hits, but balls that would often be singles turn into doubles because the outfielders have to run so far to get to them. Doubles become triples. You have somebody like Bryce Terang that can fly. That benefits him. So that's the other issue with Milwaukee and why it's tough to just like full fade them and say, they're really popular, so I'm not going to play them, is you're able to build really strong lineups around them as well. So it's not simply saying, they're not the top stack. Like, we said there's, an 80+% chance they're not the top stack, but let's say they're like the third highest scoring stack because of how cheap they are. They're still really, really useful.
Right. Yeah. Good call. So if you wanted one-offs from Milwaukee, who would you go with?
So since the start of last year for Feltner, 198 expected ISO to righties, 165 to lefties. He is right-handed. You expect those numbers to kind of balance out. So there's nothing really splits-wise that I would point to. So at that point, I think you're just going with like either whatever position you need or the best hitters you can, in which case, you're looking at Willie Adames, Yelich, Contreras from a positional standpoint is really nice. Winker from a value standpoint is really nice. So kind of depends what you're looking for, but I'd say Winker is probably the best value at 3,600. Adames is probably the top just overall hitter from Milwaukee. Tellez and Contreras are pretty reasonably priced for their positions as well.
What happened to Christian Yelich? Didn't he win like an MVP?
He was MVP
or something
a few years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and then it seems like he fell off a little bit. Am I wrong about that? It seems like he's not quite the same level.
No, he's not the same. He dealt with some injuries and kind of just never came back. Since the start of last year, 144 actual ISO for Yelich is not very good. 163 expected ISO is better, but still not what you expect from Yelich. 331 WOBA, 359 expected WOBA. So far this year, pretty much in the same ballpark. So yeah, I mean, he's still fine, but he is someone where he hasn't shown that he's the same hitter as he was a few years ago for a bit now.
That seems to happen a lot more. Like like Cody Bellinger, didn't he win an MVP as well? I feel like it happens kind of frequently in baseball.
Bellinger dropping off wasn't as weird as Yelich because Yelich was like a really good hitter who then, so I mean, I guess it's kind of, Yelich was like a really good hitter who then added a bunch of power and had like a monster year and then kind of just went back to being like a good hitter. Bellinger was a big time power hitter with a really big swing, holes in his swing, and kind of just like put it all together and then dealt with injuries also, just like Yelich did. And then I think pitchers also sort of just like adjusted to Bellinger. I think Bellinger was kind of easier to adjust to probably than Yelich, but injuries also played a part in both of them.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it too. Is like they're always like a lot of times there are pitchers who like can't hit one certain pitch, batters who can't hit one certain pitch, and then like that once pitchers figure that out, then the batters kind of like the career goes down quickly.
Yeah, and it's all that's why I think that the analysis that Saris did on Juan Soto's start this year is so interesting because like we know Soto has been a phenomenal hitter ever since he came to the league, and actually one of the things that has made him such a good hitter is how good his eye is and how patient he is. And, Saris put out a bunch of like heat maps and stuff showing that a big reason Soto is struggling this year is that pitchers are just pounding the bottom of the zone. And Soto knows he doesn't hit those pitches that well, so he doesn't swing at them. So he's just getting behind in counts constantly and refusing to swing at these pitches. So now it's just like a cat and mouse game where it's like, all right, you need to prove that you can actually hit this pitch or they're just going to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting game, baseball. Very fun. With the same thing with Joe Mauer. Not the, I don't know exactly what happened, but he had just like one year where I think he won the MVP. He was at least in the running for MVP as a catcher, hit like 28 home runs or something. And then like other than that, it was like 10 home runs a year. Just like you find these outlier seasons pretty frequently.
Yeah.
Interesting game. All right, you already gave your four sides of it. Move on to the next one. Cincinnati at San Diego. Graham Ashcraft on the mound for Cincinnati. Michael Walker for the Padres. Any interest in these pitchers?
Not particularly, tough matchup for Ashcraft. Does have good stuff, but that price tag's getting really expensive. Not really looking to take him in a matchup against the Padres. Waka's more appealing. Reds are a pretty weak offense. Waka has decent stuff. He's reasonably priced at 7,500, pulling 13% ownership, 10% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. He's kind of just a guy. You would ideally be getting to better pitchers than him, but in some lineups where you're getting more expensive hitters, you just need a pitcher in this price range. He is the highest in top 2 pitcher percentage amongst pitchers that are below $9,000 on DraftKings. So he's just, if you need him, fine, but it's not like you're starting your lineups with him.
Okay. What about the bats?
The Padres look interesting just because they're the Padres. Again, Ashcraft does have good stuff. Pretty promising young pitcher for Cincinnati. Since last year, a 152 expected ISO to righties, sub 100 expected ISO to lefties. Not a lot of strikeouts over that span. He is striking out lefties at a 25% clip so far this year, but still only a 13.5% strikeout percentage to righties. Very, very good at limiting power this year and since last year, though. So this is sort of like the Blue Jays spot where I have a difficult time saying like this is why I like the Padres. It's more so just like the Padres have a lot of really good hitters and they're 5% owned.
Yep. All right, and then how would you rank the 4 sides of this game?
Probably Waka 1, just from like a usability standpoint. Padres 2, Reds 3, Ashcraft 4.
Larry C says Joe Mauer, when he fell off, it was a concussion.
Yeah,
he had 2 or 3 bad ones. Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess that really does that only happen at catcher, like bad concussions in baseball?
Pretty much, yeah. And it doesn't normally happen there either.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if part of the reason I didn't remember that is that I did not understand how serious concussions were as much during Joe Mauer's playing days as
I also
now.
wonder, and I literally just thought about it now, so I don't know if it's been talked about or what. Like, obviously, I haven't looked into it. I wonder if he had worse concussion effects in the majors because he was a college quarterback also.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
I'm pretty sure he played like quarterback at Florida State or something. I thought
he did play. Yeah, I don't remember where Joe Mauer went to college, to be honest, but I know that he was a 3-sport star in high school. He was, I think, 1 year ahead of me in high school, and went to high school with several of my like family friends, so I know of Joe Mauer just a little bit. But yeah, I don't remember where he actually what he actually went on to play in college.
I think he might have been drafted out of high school.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking he had a football scholarship.
Yeah, he definitely had. I think he had a basketball scholarship too. He was really good 3-sport athlete. Paul Me says, yeah, same with their 1B. What was his name? Took a knee to the head on a slide. Yeah, that was Justin Morneau. He was also a beast. Those were fun years. Yep. Joe Mauer, Justin Morneau, some good teams there.
So yeah, either way, like I get Mauer was drafted out of high school. So I want to say, and I can't find it on his Wikipedia page. I'm remembering that he had a Florida State scholarship to play quarterback. That could be wrong, but I know he was like a massive quarterback prospect. So like, again, like I don't know, maybe like did his football career have an impact on why his concussions were so bad, or was it just random?
Yeah, definitely a possibility. Yeah, kind of sad that he fell off, but
yeah. So he was the USA Today High School Player of the Year in football as a quarterback and baseball as a catcher.
And he was really good at basketball. Yeah, it's some people are just, and he was like what 6'5" or so. Like he wasn't like, I guess for baseball and football, plenty big. I guess basketball is the only one where that's like not as helpful.
Yeah, so I don't know how tall he was.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, great athlete, Joe Mauer. Did you rank the 4 sides of the Cincinnati San Diego game?
Yeah, I think yes. Yeah, Waka 1, Padres 2, Reds 3, Ashcraft 4.
Okay. Guys, by the way, if you have not yet done so, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. Also, I want to tell you about a great deal that we have with BetMGM, where you can get up to $1,000 paid back in bet credits and 1 month of Stokastic Plus Platinum for free when you sign up for BetMGM. So if you are in a legal betting state, you're essentially getting 2 great deals for the price of one when you sign up for BetMGM. Use the link in the description of this video, or use promo code PlatinumSub when you sign up to take advantage of this deal. Again, you get your first bet covered up to $1,000. It'll be paid back in bet credit. So if you make a bet for $1,000, you win the bet, you're going to get that money. But if you lose the bet, you're still going to be covered in free bets paid back up to the amount that you spent. So if you bet $1,000, you're going to get $1,000 back in bet credits if you lose that bet. Of course, if you win the bet, you're just going to win the money. Great deal there. Great insurance on your bet there at BetMGM. So make sure you sign up if you have not yet done so and you are in a legal betting state, or by using the link in the description or promo code Platinum Sub. And again, you get a free month of Stokastic plus Platinum on top of it. That's all the tools that we're talking about all the time. The top stacks tool, top batters tool. You get our projections, ownership projections. All of the great tools here at Stokastic come along with that deal. So you don't need to bet $1,000 either. You can put $10 in. You're still going to get that free month of Stokastic plus Platinum. Highly recommend signing up for that. And of course, the legal age of gambling in most states is 21 plus. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. And yeah, if you do not have a gambling problem, be sure to check out BetMGM. It is a fantastic offer. If only for the Stokastic tools. I mean, the bet insurance is great up to $1,000, but you also get a free month of Stokastic tools, which that's a value of, I believe, $120 is what that would cost in general. So definitely check out BetMGM if you have not yet done so. All right.
Joe Mauer, 6'5", 230, by the way.
Yeah, he's a beast, man. That guy. Fun to watch when he was playing. All right. Seattle at Oakland. We have actually I don't see do we have a Seattle pitcher here? We don't have one.
Should be Bryce Miller.
Okay, Bryce Miller on the mound for Seattle. Mason Miller back for the A's here. Adam, any interest in these pitchers?
Yeah, this is the game you're going to for cheap pitching, I think. Mason Miller, 5,700, 27% ownership, 7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. The guy's got phenomenal stuff. It's just a matter of, he is still a young pitcher and there's going to be some volatility there, but he's 5,700. We saw it last start, and I know I've talked about it a lot, that the best way to look, like if you're trying to think in terms of like a floor for a pitcher, which again, in baseball, floor just kind of doesn't really exist, but strikeouts are what gives it to you. And you saw that last start with Mason Miller, where he wasn't spectacular or anything, but I think he lost like 7 points in the first inning and then just made it back plus some because he's good at getting strikeouts. And, so very, very limited minor league sample for him because he's been injured basically ever since he was drafted, but extremely, extremely good stuff. Through his first 2 starts in the majors, 8 innings pitched, he has struck out 30.5% of the hitters he's faced. Not a great matchup against Seattle, but good pitcher's park. And again, just a cheap price tag for a guy with really good stuff. And then on the other side, Bryce Miller, he has struggled a bit at Double-A this year, but he made 10 starts at Double-A last year as well, and he was pretty good. He is a top 100 prospect in baseball. He's the Mariners' second prospect in, according to MLB Pipeline. Mid-90s fastball, can touch 100 according to a scouting report. Good slider, curveball's solid as well. Just not a 4K pitcher. So, again, this is a guy making his major league debut who hasn't pitched above Double-A and who did struggle a bit in his 4 starts at Double-A this year. 5.97 FIP, 5.08 xFIP. Last year, 3.42 FIP at Double-A. Struck out 30% of hitters last year. This year, only striking out 21%. But he's also walking a lot less hitters this year. So, all in all, there's a lot of volatility here, but shouldn't be $4,000 and looks like a very, very good value if you need to pay down for SP2. He has a 41% chance of being a top 2 value, 30% ownership, 7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So it kind of just comes down to like, if you're stacking a cheap team and you can get like Cole Gallen or Cole Brown or Gallen Brown or, something like that, then great. But if you're going to a more expensive offense or you're trying to get, 2 high upside offenses, there's nothing really wrong with saying like, all right, I'm going to get one of the best pitchers on the slate. I'm going to pair him with a 4K Bryce Miller or a $5,700 Mason Miller, still get some upside out of the arms at those cheap price tags, and then just have really, really good bats. These guys are the reason you're not seeing much ownership go to any of these mid-range arms that we've talked about. We talked about 12% ownership coming into Waka, 12% to Mats, but like, one big reason you're not really seeing ownership come into your, John Gray, Patrick Sandoval, Tanner Houck, Tanner Beebe type guys is that you just can pay half the salary for one of the Millers.
I see that these, just sorting by ownership, these are the top 2 highest owned projected ownership on the entire slate. Bryce Miller, Mason Miller. Would you consider either of them for cash games?
Sure. Like it's, I wouldn't say no. Like if my highest projected lineup has one of them, fine. Like they're 2 of the best point per dollar projected plays. It just would come down to like the Brewers aren't that expensive. So like, can I make a cash lineup that just stacks the Brewers and also has Cole Gallen?
Right.
Obviously I would prefer to do that, but yeah, like if it turns out it's like, oh yeah, this lineup is great. And I have, a 4K top pitching prospect or a $5,700 Mason Miller. Like either of those things are fine.
Okay. Paul Me says, speaking of concussions and back scratchers, I was hospitalized for 42, I assume that's days, with bacterial meningitis. Back
Oof.
scratchers made some days worth living. Yeah, that does not sound fun
Yeah,
at all.
awful.
Yeah, but came through stronger than ever, right? It's not true. You know, people say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and that's like sometimes true, but that's not always true.
Yeah,
In this
no, a
case,
lot of
though,
times it just leaves you with trauma and
right?
a really
Yeah.
shitty experience.
Yeah, it's a bad general thing that people say, but in this case, maybe it made you stronger. All right, how much interest, if any, do you have in the offenses in this one?
So I do think the offenses are sort of interesting. The park sucks. The A's suck. The Mariners don't suck. You may or may not have Julio Rodriguez. I'm not actually positive what his current status is. But either way, you know, you have France, Kalnick, Suarez, Raleigh, Hernandez. These guys are all good hitters. You have a cheap Taylor Trammell. So against Miller, you know, a pitcher that does have good strikeout stuff, but also is unproven. I do have some interest in Seattle here. They're middle of the pack in top stack percentage at 4.5%, 2.5% projected ownership. And if they do well, you have 30% of the field that rostered the pitcher against them. Oakland, you know, you can make that same case going up against a pitcher who hasn't pitched above AA, who did struggle at AA this year. But they also just still suck. So like for Oakland, you could just, you know, stack them as a value team. Hope Bryce Miller ends up being terrible in his major league debut. You have, you know, Cole plus Gallen plus really good one-offs. That's a high upside lineup. But more realistically, I would just be grabbing like Brent Rooker, Shea Langoliers as, you know, one-offs or two-man, something like that.
Okay, and then how would you rank the four sides of the game?
Mason Miller, Bryce Miller, Mariners, and then the Athletics.
Makes sense. Okay, final game of the slate, we have Philadelphia at the LA Dodgers. Matthew Strahm on the mound for the Phillies. Julio Urias for the Dodgers. Adam, you playing either of these pitchers?
Probably get to some Urias. Strom is another one of these mid-range pitchers. We're on a lot of slates. He would be at least somewhat interesting. He's actually 7th in top 2 pitcher percentage at 9%, and he's only 0.1% ownership. It is a very tough matchup against the Dodgers. You do have good strikeout stuff for Strom, but the reason that it isn't that interesting of a conversation is just that you can save $1,200 and go to Mason Miller. You can save $2,900 and go to Bryce Miller and not have to face the Dodgers, and then also get better one-offs. So he's another guy that I think is just kind of getting no ownership because DraftKings just gave up on pricing top pitching prospects, apparently. So makes it tough to get there. Urias, solid enough matchup against the Phillies. They should have Bryce Harper back today. Very, very quick return from Tommy John surgery for him. So that's another good bat in this Phillies lineup. Obviously, Hoskins done for the year, so they won't get back to full strength, but that does make this lineup a bit more dangerous. But Urias still just a good pitcher, 9,100, 3.6 implied run total for the Phillies. Since the start of last year, Urias has struck out 24.5% of left-handed hitters, 24.2% of righties, 121 expected ISO to righties, 188 to lefties. Just a good pitcher at a reasonable $9,100 price tag. He's pulling about 22% ownership, 17% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So he's sort of just like a consolation prize if you're trying to get to one of the top pitchers, but you can't quite afford Cole, Gallen, or Brown.
Okay. And then how about the bats in this game?
Not a ton of interest here outside of the very obvious. The Dodgers are incredibly good at hitting baseballs and probably won't be that popular because they have a 4.4 implied run total, 3% projected ownership coming into the Dodgers, 3.5% chance of being the top stack. They're one of the teams on that list where it's just like, I don't really care who they're facing because if it drives down their ownership, it just means that they're interesting for that reason.
Right.
So, you know, you're never upset about getting there, but middle of the pack stack. On the other side for the Phillies, not a lot of interest getting to them against Urias. Just a good pitcher and plenty of other offenses I like.
Okay. I was just thinking about like baseball players falling off for like coming out of nowhere and being great and then bad. Just remembering Yasiel Puig, when he came into the league, the mania around Yasiel Puig was so incredible. His baseball cards, it was like there were cards. So I was sort of a collector at the time. They were like 50-cent cards. You could have bought them for like 50 cents. And then like a week or two later, like sell it for $80. Like it was just insane the way people were buying up his cards. Like, oh God, this is the next like Babe Ruth or whatever. And then completely fell off. It's interesting when that happens.
Yeah. He was interesting for a lot of reasons, but like he had power even by the time he was done in the majors. His last year in the majors, he still had a 191 ISO, 100 WRC plus. The year before that, he was 123, but he had, you know, his off the field personal issues too. the thing that I thought was really interesting about him too was like his personality was so like he was very like charismatic. It was just like he also was like a shithead.
Right.
If he hadn't been a shithead, like he could have been like such a mega star in terms of just like, you know, being beloved because like he was so charismatic and good. But it was just like, yeah, no, I'm going to go the other route and just kind of talk my way out of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, that was unfortunate the way his career went, I guess. Could have gone so well for him if he had just embraced the better parts of his personality.
Played in the KBO last year. I wish he had done that during
Did
COVID.
he really?
Yeah.
Man, that's fun.
136 WRC plus, 21 home runs, 197 ISO.
Paul Me says he was Cuban, so that was a little extra hyped. Yeah, that might be the case. Like if it's kind of just like international players in general, I think are a little bit more unknown. So that when they come in hot, it's like maybe he is this good, maybe this is just who he is. Whereas like if you're already in the minors, what his history is in the minors, maybe you don't get quite as much hype. I don't know.
Yeah, and anyway. I mean he was when he came, he was 22 and like highly regarded in international baseball circles.
Yeah. All right. How would you rank the four sides of this Philadelphia Dodgers game?
Talking about Puig just made me think. I can't think of his name. The Red Sox gave like a huge contract to the Cuban guy that like ended up never even really playing in the majors. But man, it's gonna bug me now. I'm sure it's Stephen Leibowitz is in chat. I'm sure Rusney Castillo.
Castillo.
Yeah, I think they gave him like a 5-year deal, like a ton of money, and he was just awful. Urias 1. Dodgers 2, Strom 3, Phillies 4.
Okay. And then we'll do an overview of, all right, starting with you're in a 3 max contest. You want to play 3 different stacks. Which 3 stacks are you going to?
Jake said Puig was a defector. That's why there was more publicity. They're all defectors at least at that time. Like it's starting to change a little bit. But those are always, if you find articles on what these Cuban guys go through to get to the majors, it's wild. Like I don't remember the exact specifics, but I like Jose Abreu had to like eat his passport on a plane so that like they like I guess couldn't send him back. But yeah, like wild stuff that these guys go through. Puig I think had a really rough like story too. Top 3 stacks. I'll go Milwaukee, Minnesota, and I'll be a homer and go Baltimore.
Nice. So both of our teams make it into your top 3. Yeah, just stack the Twins and the Orioles. All right, top 3 pitchers.
Cole, Gallen, Brown are the top 3. I think that if you can't get to them, you're going down to one of the Millers.
Okay. And then home run pick.
Ian Happ.
Let me take a look real quick.
Probably should have gone Gallo, but I'll go Ian Happ.
Hell yeah, I'm taking Gallo. I love it when you say stuff like that. It makes my job so easy. Is Gallo still batting 7th? What are we projected today? I mean, I'm just gonna go with Gallo. I like that pick. We're in Chicago, winds blowing out. Gallo just a monster here. I do not see where we haven't projected batting. Oh yeah, we still have him in the 7 hole, so definitely legal to take a batter in the 7 hole there. All right, Adam, I think we got through all of the games. Jake Swell says 6th, I believe. So we still haven't projected for 7th, but maybe he'll come in 6th in this game. Anyway, Paul Me asks, Adam, have your eye on any pitcher who have been getting extra lucky this year or home run rate has fallen and are due to get bombed off this slate?
Not particularly. I just haven't paid attention because like projections are still going to be regressed to what like they've done and what you're expecting them to do. So that's one of those things where like typically if I'm paying attention to it, it's more so just like to talk about on shows because it's interesting to talk about more so than like because I'm doing anything with it in DFS.
Right.
I can if I have time today, I guess I'm not on a show tonight. Or I'm on a basketball show tonight. If I get a chance today or tonight, I'll put together a spreadsheet to track some of that stuff just to be able to talk about it tomorrow.
Cool. Jake Swells asked, did we talk about Bibby? We did talk about Bibby during that game. It was I think close to the beginning of the show. We talked about Bibby. Do you want to quickly say your piece on Bibby again?
I think he's kind of just a casualty to the Millers. He is 6,500. Those guys are cheaper. If you want to use him as like a pretty cheap pivot, I think that's fine. But I think either Mason Miller or Bryce Miller both are going to project better as point per dollar plays.
Have you ever seen the movie We Are the Millers?
Yes, Jennifer Aniston, Jason Sudeikis.
I think so. I think I've seen it too. Like 90% sure that I've seen the movie. Anyway, you keep seeing the Miller, so I had to ask. All right. Any final thoughts on the slate or final thoughts in general?
I'll have my 2 MLB and NBA articles out shortly. I'll have my Bet Pro video out in a bit. I'll be back for the NBA deeper dive with somebody, and I think that's it.
I love how you always say that. I'll be back with somebody.
Well, because normally I keep thinking I'm going to be able to just quickly pull up the schedule and see who it is, and then I realize it's going to take me 5 minutes to figure out who it is, and I just give up.
Yeah, it's a little bit tougher these days. I think I'm going to be on live before lock with Greg today, and then I'm off the next couple of days. It's going to be kind of nice, both Wednesday and Thursday. No night shows for me, and I think those are also when we just have single games. So they're not making me do NBA Showdown just yet. So that's kind of. Oh yeah, Obi-Wan says it's Roger. Yeah, good point. Yeah, you're on with Roger later.
I am on with Josh.
Okay, catch Adam and Josh on NBA Deeper Dive. I'll be back with Greg on live before lock later. Yeah, I'm not on vacation. I wasn't scheduled on those days. I do have softball on Thursday night, so maybe it's maybe that's why. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Please do like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live, and we will see you later tonight.